Oh, am I live? All right, I am live. Hello, everyone. I am Enchantress of Numbers. Welcome to the start of the tutorials for tonight on RGL for NEScathlon. So I'm gonna get things started off with NES Tetris category doing 100 lines, any level start. So let's just go ahead and get going here. I made a lot of animations. Hopefully they help out to try to illustrate some things, and then feel free to pipe in with any questions, and then I'll also, after going through everything, do a couple of runs to try to is this the competition cartridge? No, I'm just using a regular standard NES Tetris cartridge. So but anyway, the first thing you'd want to figure out when you're playing Tetris, that's something you may not have thought of too much, is exactly how do the pieces rotate. And so I made a handy thing showing the rotation bounding boxes. And it's there's a few important things to show here. The first is that like the I block rotates right of center, which is important. That's gonna mean we want to try to keep the Tetris well to the right side. It makes it easier and faster to get the I block over to the right side versus stacking with a Tetris well to the left side. Pressing the A button, as you can tell by looking at the J, L, and T blocks, it makes the pieces rotate clockwise. And you can see they all kind of rotate about a center. The S and the Z are a little bit different, but you can also see the S and the Z don't, they only have two states. It just toggles between the two. They don't have, like in modern guideline Tetris, the S and the Z have 4 states, but in this they only have 2. And the I block just doesn't rotate. So, but we do have a second rotation button on the controller that we can make use of, and that's the B button. And you'll notice this just rotates counterclockwise, but otherwise is exactly the same as the standard rotations. So nothing too big there. The other things, I guess, ideally, so the pieces, when you clear lines, the line clear animation is the same length regardless of however many lines you clear. So ideally you're going to be clearing all Tetrises, but in practice that's just not going to happen unless you get incredibly lucky and are really skilled at stacking. So there are some skimming strats that are important for being able to clear lines to keep your stack manageable while at the same time not preventing you from clearing a Tetris. So the most obvious one is a triple skim with the L block, and you can just drop it down. If you have your 9th column a little bit lower than the rest of your stack, you can just drop that right in there, and you'll clear a triple and your well will be wide open. And that's super easy and handy to keep track of. That's probably the most obvious basic skim that that anyone would just figure out just by, playing the game for a few minutes. Beyond that, you can skim to clear doubles in a couple of ways. Like if you have a 2x2 cutout, you can clear a double with an O block. Again, that's a pretty straightforward one. Skimming with an S like this is another pretty straightforward one. But it definitely helps, and that's why it can be beneficial to keep that 9th column a little bit lower. And I guess I should have mentioned the dimensions of the well. If you've never thought about it before, they are actually 10 rows wide by 20 rows tall. So that should, so when I say column 9, I mean the furthest left column is column 1 and the furthest right column is column 10. So you can also, there are a number of ways you can skim with singles. And so skimming with singles that's the least desirable thing, because you're only clearing a single that doesn't clear a lot. But if you're, if you're doing a level 18 start or level 19 start or something like that, where you have a really high gravity, skimming singles is really beneficial. Or if you were going for a score attack, skimming singles is actually really beneficial there, because you skim the single and then that leaves more time for Tetrises on score attack. So with a Z, you could, if you have a nice little cutout, a stair step cutout like that, you can skim a Z. That's one that's maybe a little bit, hopefully at this point we're going to be getting into some of the ones that are a little bit less obvious. So we've got that one. With a T, you can also play a T flat in a similar stair step situation. And I guess I should point out, like, given the stacks that I have here, I'm just showing off what the skims are that are possible. I'm not saying that the skim is the optimum placement at that time. So just sort of things to keep in mind as you're stacking. If you need to lower the stack a bit for survivability, these are some things you can do. Also, there's another way to skim with a T that's not flat. If you just have that too wide there, you can drop it in and skim like in the vertical orientation like that, and that keeps things open a bit more. So then there's skimming with an L. This is one a lot of people think, well, you could do the triple with the L like we mentioned before. So if you saw, this would be useful if we saw that in the next queue there was an I. So we clear that single to prevent, because we have a good spot there. And then we can clear a Tetris if we had, that coming up very quickly. It doesn't lower too much the stack. There's actually a couple of alternative ways to skim a single with the L. We could, by laying it flat like this, we can skim an L, and that leaves us a nice lower column 9 in this setup. If we're in a setup where column 10 is or column 9 is a little bit higher, we can still skim by laying it flat, just like that. So just a handy way to do that. Then there's the J, and this is one a lot of people really don't think to skim with a J like this. And that can help to build up your column 9 if you need to build it up so that you can clear a Tetris. It's really handy for that. And there's another way we can skim with the J by placing it flat like this here as well. So Anthole, of course, I'm more than happy to help out with the tutorials. So I hope everyone watching, I hope you all become Tetris masters after this. So, but yeah, placing this J flat, we can clear that single and hopefully move on to, clearing more Tetrises. There is also another neat one that a lot of people don't think of, but are split clears. And the coolest way you can do this, well, like here's one specific example where we don't have a clean well, but we want to try to keep that well in the far right column. Basically using the same thing from the single J skim, we can actually skim a double, but it's a split double. and that's the split clears like that are harder to recognize. But it does do a really great job at again clearing all the stuff out and keeping your stack manageable. Those are kind of the main things I had with as far as animations to show off. There's a couple of other things before I actually start, firing up the game to play. I did want to say, like, there's some question about, what level should you start at, and I would say you don't want to start on a higher level than you can control and reasonably expect to clear 100 lines, because while the world record is 3 minutes and 10 seconds by Corian at a level 19 start, I can't regularly clear the game at level 19, so I would not do that in a marathon setting. I can't regularly clear 100 lines at level 18. I would probably do like a level 15 start or something, so basically the gravity increases every level starting from 0 up until level 9, it increases. And then level 10 is an increase from 9, but 10, 11, and 12 are all the same speed. 13, 14, and 15 are the same speed. 16, 17, and 18 are all the same speed. And then level 19 through 28 are the same speed. And then 29 is that standard kill screen where it goes to falling 1 row per frame. That is really just an unsustainable speed. Even though some people have managed to survive to level 30, it's just not a sustainable speed that humans can play at. But the game, you can actually control what level you start at by basically if you hold A when you press start, it will start you 10 levels ahead. So if I'm on level 0 and I hold A and press start, it starts me at level 10 instead of level 0. So that's the nice thing there. And yeah, you wouldn't want to play any higher of a level than you can comfortably regularly clear the game, or clear 100 lines, because topping out and having to start over is going to cost you a lot more time than starting at a slower level. To put that in perspective a little bit, I mentioned the level 19 world record is 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Starting at level 0, the world record is 3 minutes and 47 seconds by RC Drone. So that really, I mean, that's a 37-second difference between level 0 start and level 19 start. Granted, the level 0 start is doing some really risky strats that are not marathon safe either. I will show off a basic safe level 0 strat to show you can comfortably do that in under 6 minutes. And then I can show there's some, building up a platform to reduce falling time is a bit more risky, but it can shave off quite a bit of time at a level 0 start as well. Couple of other things. Just to talk a little bit about the randomizer, as I'm just going to stack a few blocks here while I play. The way the randomizer works in this game, it keeps track of the most recent piece played, and then it rolls the next piece. And if the next piece is the same piece that it just rolled, it will roll again. So it tries to prevent giving you the same piece back to back. But it doesn't do a great job at it because it only keeps one piece of history and it only re-rolls once. And as I'm talking here, I'm not stacking super great. But we can clear that up. So, as a result, because of that, there are some things you do kind of want to avoid. You want to avoid like doing something like this, where I am I have kind of two eyepiece dependencies, that 3 deep well in this column and the really deep well in that column. You really need an eyepiece to fill both of them. Those kinds of things get really risky. Basically, you want to try to... what is the most common block? I haven't done the statistical analysis, but the randomizer is, as far as I know, it's fair beyond the reroll structure. So, and I know that, like, when, you know, in like the classic Tetris World Championships and stuff like that, they always stack with the Tetris well to the right. Things like that. I know those details. I'm not, I wouldn't consider myself a top tier, you know, classic Tetris World Championship level, runner. I have a time that I've not uploaded for level 0 start that is at, it's like 4 minutes and 30 some seconds, like 31 to 33 seconds, something like that. There are some patterns I do want to show off that we should try to avoid. You want to try to keep your stack relatively flat, but you don't want it to be too flat. Basically, the thing is, so at a perfectly flat stack like this, the S piece that we get now, or like the Z piece, those you can't stack without creating an overhang or a hole. So you really want to avoid that by stacking too flat, but at the same time you also don't want to make your stack too jagged. So here, if I can get... okay, so here's a good example. So if we see this in columns 6, 7, and 8, where we have 6 is low, 7 is raised, 8 is low, with the either columns 5 and 9 are really high. That's a bad situation, because if we place an S or a Z down there, we're going to need an eyepiece to clear that out for us, or to make it so that we don't have a hole, basically. So in this situation, like, ideally, if you do get it, you'd want to get like a T. So we have this T, we can do that, and then now we place it so we can use a J to fill that. And that's, I mean, that's a good way to solve that situation, but it's just not a situation you want to get yourself into, typically, because it's a pattern that lends itself to just mistakes. So another thing, we could place, like, placing this Z over here would be, it would fit there, but it wouldn't make a good shape. Instead, it's better to, like, the S's and the Z's, the T's, the L's and the J's. In order to try to keep your stacks mostly flat, it's best to try to place those pieces, if you can, flat. Unless you have, like, an ideal spot to play them stacked more vertically. Those are just some general guidelines for keeping your stack relatively clean and stable, I would say. The next thing probably I should mention is the delayed auto shift. And so what that means is when... I'm going to actually top out and start back at level 0 to show this off. But if you hold the... What happens with delayed auto shift is when you hold to the direction to, say, the left, the block will move a column, and then it'll pause, and then it'll start moving at a more rapid pace over to the left, and likewise to the right. And the mechanics of how that work basically is the game keeps track of that DAS charge, or delayed auto shift charge, and it keeps a counter for the number of frames that you've been holding to the left or to the right, and it starts out at 0, and when you press to the left, it starts counting up every single frame until 16, and once it hits 16, it repeats. It shifts a second time, and then once it gets to 16, it'll actually reset to 10 rather than 0, and then it'll count back up the 6 frames to get it to 16 to go again. So the way it works is you hold left, it moves 1 column, then you wait 16 frames, it moves again, then you wait 6 frames and it moves again, and it keeps moving. So ideally, unless you can mash the directional pad faster than 6 frames a second, or 6 times a second, 6 hertz, it is better to learn how to deal with the delayed auto shift. And there are some tricks you can do for preservation. So if you hold that when the piece locks down, it depends on the height at which the piece locks down, how long the time period is before the next piece spawns, but it's between 10 and 18 frames. And during that time period, you don't lose your DAS charge if you change the direction. So if you have a DAS charge to the left and then the piece locks down, you can shift to the right during that time before the piece spawns, and the next piece will actually come out with a full DAS charge, which is really, really handy, especially if you're wanting to get comfortable enough to play at level 18, level 19 speed. And the other interesting thing about the DAS is if you hold the to the side while it's like the piece is up against the wall, if you hold to the left while it's up against the left wall, or while is pushing against the stack, it instantly gives you a full DAS charge. And so you can do that to kind of take advantage of getting a full DAS charge sorry about that. To get a full DAS charge while you might not have been, the piece you were placing, you may not have needed a full DAS charge, but you can do that to get it for the next piece. So I'll try to give a little bit of a demonstration about it. I'm not the best at it, so you can kind of see as I'm holding right, you can see there's a bit of a hesitation before it starts repeating at a relatively quick pace. And I said 6 times a second. I meant 6... Sorry, that would be 10 times a second that it goes across, because game runs at 60 hertz. I need to correct myself there. So, but if I just let this piece fall and I hold left once it lands, the next piece is going to spawn just moving at maximum speed all the way over. And likewise, if I hold it to the right here, the next piece spawns moving all the way very quickly to the right. Those are the main tricks for DAS preservation, and unfortunately, at level 0 start, DAS preservation isn't the most important technique because you're kind of wanting to drop So I will be back as soon as I hear that everything is good. Okay. All right, it looks like we might be coming back up. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. There was some tech issues. But awesome. So okay, so we are back. And so I think it cut out when I was trying to demonstrate changing direction of that dash charge. So I'm gonna try to do that. So if I hold to the left here to basically get a dash charge into the wall, I want to try to shift it to get the next piece spawning with a dash charge to the right. Oh, I didn't switch it fast enough, so we'll try it again. Basically. It's really difficult when you're not, when you don't practice it a lot, and there, I spawned the L with full dash charge to the right because spawning it from getting the charge holding the eyepiece to the left. So, and I was, the thing about the, preserving the DAS like that and really being able to switch the direction of your DAS charge like that is not super important at level 0, because the whole point at level 0 is you want to be dropping the block by holding down on the D-pad as much as possible. That allows you to play the fastest. So preserving DAS is much more important if you were playing, level 18, level 19, even level 15 starts. So, but it's easier for me to demonstrate it at the lower level. And so I think at this point I'm gonna just go ahead and do some runs, unless if people have any questions, just please feel free to speak up and in chat with questions, and I will be more than happy to answer questions. So, but yeah, so for this one, I'm gonna just do a standard level 0 safe strat start, just to show you that you can really get decent time at a level 0 start, and this is the safest, easiest way to really run the category of level of 100 lines. So, and if this is the way you're most comfortable clearing 100 lines, then it's the way you should run it. So, because like I said, if you start out at level, if you want to start out at level 9, but you're not super comfortable at 9, and then you end up topping out early, that's going to cost you more time than starting at level 0 would. So, here to show off just basically standard, we're going to do right side Tetris well, try to keep a clean stack, clear as many Tetrises as we can, Keep the stack clean. So here we've got a pretty nice stack, and now we just really want to wait for an eyepiece, which we just got, which is nice. And there we got... there's some interesting wall finesse I should point out. Once I get a good opportunity. Basically, if you wait to rotate the eyepiece until it touches the wall, you can take advantage of where it rotates to help place your piece more accurately. So if we wanted to, we have a good spot here. Our next eyepiece we'll try to place in column 9 there. If we wait to rotate that until it goes all the way to the right side. I'm gonna do that, sorry. If we wait until the eyepiece gets all the way to the right before we rotate it, it rotates right into that column and we don't have to worry about tapping it back. So that's just a little optimization that you can do on that placement. See, I didn't do it that time and that was a bit slower, so... every 10 lines, starting at level 0, every 10 lines is gonna increase your level, and that's gonna increase the speed. So, doing a little bit of fancy skimming there that you might not be super comfortable doing. Okay, this is getting a little bit hairy here. Because it's hard to talk and play at the same time. Okay. And the game's not being super generous with the eyepiece right now. Okay. Well, that was bad. Don't do that. Let's try one more time at the regular... my problem there was that I was basically relying too much on Tetrises and not enough on those skimming techniques that I mentioned at the start of the tutorial, so... Yeah, the RNG was pretty rough there. I don't know, I wasn't counting my eyepiece drought, but it seemed like a pretty bad drought that I was getting. Oh, dang it. Thanks for properly mimicking your experience. You're welcome. So here, again, I made some misdrops and put us into a bad situation. So here I want to focus on downstacking. And the biggest thing about downstacking is you really want to try to avoid stacking over the next hole you want to uncover. So... I really want to avoid stacking into column 8 there, and now... Okay, got it completely cleaned up. Hi Danny, welcome. So, yeah, now we're just trying to clear those Tetrises, since we're back at a clean and stable stack. You could clear a double there with that eyepiece that I just had, but... that would keep the stack lower and safer, but it would also be slower. So, and there's that shape I talked about not really wanting to get, but I just decided that I would make a hole and deal with that later. So, and that's always an option. Like, a lot of times people are really worried about making holes in their stack. But as long as you don't go too overboard with it, it's really not that big of a deal to make a hole in your stack. So I'm gonna do a little bit of damage control here. Okay. don't honestly, I didn't know a lot about that, BMAC. But I would think that in a speedrun context, that would not be a super beneficial strategy, because it would, basically you'd be taking up more time maneuvering your pieces than you would save by getting that eyepiece. So yeah, I don't know anything about whether that's true or not. It may very well be true, I just don't, I don't know enough about the inner workings of this game. My main Tetris game is actually Tetris the Grandmaster, but a lot of the stacking strategies and stuff carries over decently well, and I mentioned before, like my personal best at a level 0 start is in the low 4 minutes and 30-second range, which is not great, but also it's not terrible, and I haven't like grinded it out for like a super good time either, so okay. But yeah, so I guess for the VOD, I should mention what BMAC mentioned was about having read that if you move the pieces around a lot, the game thinks that you're having a harder time, and it will give you eyepieces as a result, and that it may be possible to abuse that to get more eyepieces. And so that's what I was saying. It's not a thing I had heard about. It may very well be true. I'm just not super familiar with it. So we have 11 lines left to clear. At this point, we're getting close to the end. I would say it's less important to worry about getting Tetrises, and you just want to keep your stack low at this point, because blocks left on screen are basically wasted time. So okay, 522. Again, for the, not a great time, but for the strats of just, you know, going for Tetrises, not trying to do any fancy upstacking or anything like that. It's a perfectly, you know, respectable time, and certainly that's a better time than you would get if you played above your skill level or comfort zone and topped out. You know, even just one top out would cost you more time than playing at a level 0 start would. So I'm gonna go ahead and top out. And I'll do another level 0 start run here, this time with some slightly less safe strats, which basically building up a platform to reduce the fall time of the pieces. And so this one, you should be able to get a faster time doing it, but I'm not, I may top out. I'm not super consistent at this, and you really can't afford to hold out for Tetrises too long when you do that, because, you know, you are stacked up quite a bit higher. So let's go ahead and give it a go. So we stack up. Okay. So now by stacking up and creating a platform like this, the pieces don't have to fall quite so far at all, and it can actually allow you to save quite a bit of time. And this is what the speedrun does at the high level for level 0 start. And so when you do this, this is where a lot of those skimming strats that I mentioned before come in handy. Sometimes you need to do some unconventional line clears just to survive, and that's okay. Oh, dang it. That was... I thought I was all the way over. Okay, so this could be bad. Well, on the one hand it's good because it's allowing us to play faster, but on the other hand it's bad because it's unsafe. So, okay, we managed to get out of that scenario, which is good. Oh, good to know. Thanks for the heads up. Virus Return says that it happens in the Japanese Tetris 2 plus Bomb Bliss, but they weren't aware that it happened here as well. So, always good to share the knowledge. Okay, so this one's going pretty well. And so as you can tell, I'm really trying to be very careful about not losing my floor of my platform. And that's a strategy, that's a skill that really comes with practice. I don't have a lot of good advice for it. It's just really being aware of where the holes are that you don't want to fill, basically. But yeah, like I said before, the important thing about this when playing like this is you really have to be familiar with ways to skim. Especially once it starts getting to the faster speeds, you really can't afford to get stacked too high up. Okay. Okay, so there we got 447, so that's quite a bit faster, like 30 seconds faster than not doing the tree strat like that. So you can actually do, like, that can save a significant amount of time, but as you could also tell, most likely that it's quite a bit less safe. So, let's see, how much time do I have? I'll go ahead and do, I'll do a level 15 start, and this will be at level 15 the entire time. This I might not complete, but we can see what I can get out of it. So, hold, again, to get to level 15, you'd select 5, and hold A when you press start, so... Okay. So, and then here I'm probably going to be doing more skimming just because you don't want to let your stack get too high at these high speeds. And level 15 is the same speed as, I believe, 13 and 14, and then level 16, 17, and 18 are all the same speed. So if you wanted to play at that speed, you could really just pick whatever level has the colors you like the best. Okay, that was a mistake. I thought I was one over. Okay, so we're getting this cleaned up. Taking care not to stack over the holes when we're trying to downstack them, unless it's absolutely necessary. Okay, gonna skim there to build up for the Tetris, which worked out really nicely. Got a tickle in my throat, and I would take a drink of water if I could easily. Trying to hold out for an eyepiece, but the game's not being very forthcoming. Okay. Ah, dang it. So, we were on pace to do, that was, no. We were on pace to do better than the previous run, but got a little bit out of control. So, like I said, I may not even play at that high if I were doing a marathon run of this. For comparison, if you did, say, a level 9 run, or I guess let's do 12. That's the next lowest speed. I think I got time to do one last run. So we'll do that. Also, give one last, while I'm doing this run, one last call for questions. If anyone has questions, please feel free to type them in chat and I will do my best to answer them. At least it congratulated me for being a Tetris master. That is true. It is very, very nice that way. But yeah, with the RNG having one history and one reroll, it's theoretically better than pure random, but not by a lot. Pure random being memoryless, no reroll. Yeah, although, I don't know if it's super accurate in my case when it comes to NES Tetris, but I appreciate that. Hello, Wendon, welcome. So, and yeah, level 12 is a lot more comfortable than, for me anyway, than level 15. I think it's only one fewer, I think this is just taking 1 frame longer per row to fall, but that's, so it doesn't sound like much, but it, when you're playing it, it's not insignificant. Yeah, it's columns rot. Okay, so now it would be really nice for the game to give us an eyepiece. Of course, the game didn't want to give it to us until covering up the Tetris well. Alright, getting some good eyepieces now. Oh, and I just realized I forgot to start the timer, so I can't tell you how long this one has taken. So I apologize for that. World record pace, yeah. No, at this point, Corian would probably be, if he's not done, he would be very close, I think. In his world record video. So, alright. Nice low stack, stable, got a good Tetris well. Hey, Yelsrick, thanks for the good luck. Okay, so 8 lines left. Gonna shift a little bit in my strategy to just try to clear some lines, although now the game's not giving me the good pieces to clear lines. Funny how that works. Okay, and that's 100 lines there, so... is Corian a cyborg? You know, one might question that. Corian doesn't use the delayed auto shift technique or the DAS that I mentioned. He has a really interesting way of holding the controller where he uses his right index finger to do fast mashing on the D-pad and his pinky and ring finger to rotate, and then his left thumb to do slow mashing. And he mashes faster than 10 hertz, so he mashes faster than the delayed auto shift works. So, but anyway, it is, that's my hour is up, I do believe. So I want to say, thank you all for coming out and watching, and stay tuned for, I believe the next one is White Hat doing a tutorial of Wampum Any %. So stay tuned for that, and yeah, thanks for coming and watching and checking it out, and good luck on NEScathlon.